We didn't know the quiet human girl sitting in the back row of the Imperial Military Academy was capable of a surgical biological dissection until her classmate's severed primary mandible hit the floorboards, and the room's tactical scanners went into an absolute, screaming meltdown. That was the exact hook the universe used to turn a routine combat simulation into a brutal lesson in human anatomy. I'm Instructor Vane. I'm a combat veteran of the Valari Dominion, an 8-foot-tall aristocracy of elegant, avian reptilian conquerors. To our species, humans are nothing but soft, squishy primitives. They are thin-skinned, unarmored pets allowed into our prestigious academy only as a token of diplomatic goodwill. We teach our youth to rely on cold math, spreadsheets, and heavy kinetic exosuits. But nobody ever bothered to look at the historical data pads on Earth's evolutionary grinder. It was midday during the advanced interspecies combat class, and the ambient tension in the lecture hall was already thick. Standing in the center of the sparring ring was Kale, a 7-foot-tall alpha elite of the Valari nobility, his iridescent silver scales flaring a hot, dominant crimson. He had just easily dismantled 3 other alien recruits, his heavy claws dripping with training serum. Kale looked toward the back row, his multifaceted eyes locking onto Clara, a 19-year-old human cadet who weighed barely 120 pounds. She was quietly taking notes on a digital clipboard, ignoring his chest-thumping display. Kale took her silence as a direct insult to his royal status. He stepped out of the sparring bounds, his internal combat computers running the numbers. The spreadsheets in his high-tech helmet said a primitive human possessed a 0% counterattack probability. His mechanical translator droned out a wet, heavy, metallic rasp across the classroom. The biological deficit of your species requires localized submission, the machine automated. Step into the ring, primitive. Your logic centers must dictate total surrender. Walk away now. The other alien cadets chuckled, their mandibles clicking in anticipation of seeing the fragile human get broken in half. Clara didn't move for a long moment. She slowly set her clipboard down on her desk, adjusted the collar of her standard-issue uniform, and walked straight down the stadium steps. All caps for emphasis can't describe the absolute, paralyzing speed of what happened next. Kale didn't wait for the official training chime. The moment Clara stepped onto the obsidian floorboards of the ring, he launched a reckless, lethal blindside strike, aiming his massive, razor-sharp claws directly at her throat to end the bout in a single, humiliating second. Alien logic says that when a squishy primitive is faced with an apex predator's ambush, they freeze. They scream. They slide into the mud and beg for survival. But Clara didn't even flinch. Instead of backing away, she stepped into the vacuum of his strike. With a terrifying, fluid grace that her baggy uniform had completely hidden, her bare hands moved like lightning. She bypassed his heavy outer scales entirely, slipping her fingers into the soft, unarmored joints beneath his primary shoulder plate. Before Kale's combat computer could even process the collision, Clara utilized his own massive momentum against him. She drove her elbow directly into the highly sensitive neural cluster at the base of his neck, shattering his internal balance matrix. Kale let out a ragged, ugly shriek as his knees buckled. But Clara wasn't done. She didn't follow a clean, structured simulation protocol. She struck back with an absolute, ruthless precision that belonged on a prehistoric battlefield. She gripped his primary mandible, twisted her hips, and with a sickening crack, ripped the structural bone clean out of his jaw. Kale crashed hard onto the floor, clutching his bleeding face, his giant frame trembling violently in the dirt. Clara stood over him, her chest barely heaving, her uniform completely unstained. She casually tossed the severed mandible onto my instructor's podium, where it bounced with a dull, hollow thud. The classroom went dead silent. The red laser sights of the automated security turrets dropped from the ceiling, their tracking arrays spinning in absolute, error-ridden confusion. The equations in their high-tech helmets were completely broken. Their math had failed them. How do you calculate a species that doesn't need heavy armor to paralyze an elite warrior in less than 3 seconds? I stared at the monitor. The scanners finally updated, revealing that Clara hadn't just gotten lucky, she had targeted 4 independent lethal pressure points with sub-millimeter accuracy. She looked up at the entire class of towering alien warlords, her wide amber eyes completely cold. "You think we're fragile because we don't wear your machines on our backs," Clara said, her voice cracked like dry leather but echoing clearly through the silent hall. "But on Earth, we spent 10,000 years learning exactly how to break things bigger than you with our bare hands. Next time you want to test my biology, make sure you bring a bigger squad." The Chancellor's hand froze on the medical dispatch key. The elite guards at the doors backed away by a full step, realizing their Imperial spreadsheets could never calculate the raw, predatory instinct hidden behind a human smile. The universe thinks everything runs on clean numbers, programming, and clean simulations. The alien empires assume that because we feel empathy and walk around unarmored, we are a soft target to be managed or crushed. But they forget that our capacity for absolute, terrifying violence when pushed into a corner is exactly what makes us so damn dangerous. Because when a human decides to drop the civilized act, your entire combat manual goes straight into the fire. So, next time you think about picking on the quiet human in the back of the room, don't wait for the lesson to start. Just run.